listeners, and welcome to Leading the Way in RVA. My name is Casey Long, and I am the host of this podcast, as well as the owner of Fulfilled Coaching and Consulting. The purpose of this podcast is twofold. First is to introduce you to inspiring leaders here in our Richmond community. And second is to give you tactical tips that you can take away and apply to further develop yourself as a leader. Today is a special episode. It's our first episode where we have 3 guests. And today we have a special focus on one of my favorite topics, which is understanding your strengths through leveraging the tool CliftonStrengths. So without further ado, I'd like to take a moment and introduce you to our special guest today. As I mentioned, we have 2. First and foremost is Amy Kocev. And second, we have Casey Pulsifer. Both of these ladies I met during my time at Capital One, and all 3 of us are certified strengths coaches. So we're going to spend the latter half of our time today talking about that. But first, I'd like to take a moment and let Amy introduce herself to you and tell you a little bit more about herself. Welcome,
Awesome.
Amy.
Thank you so much. So excited to be here. Thanks, Casey. So Amy Kocev, I am a Gallup certified strengths coach and have been for 9 years now, which doesn't seem possible. And I also work in learning and development here and around the Richmond area and do strengths coaching and consulting.
Nice. Thank you.
And my name is Casey Pulsifer. I'm a team development coach and consultant specializing in CliftonStrengths. I would say I'm super passionate about personal and professional development and growth. I like to say teams should not be just surviving, they should be thriving. So that's a lot of what my work is focused on.
Awesome.
Nice. So I'd love to just take a little bit of time and hear how in the world did you get into this space? What led you to being passionate about learning and development, team development, and especially this whole concept of strengths-based coaching. So Amy, let's hear from you.
Yeah, I think, so you mentioned we met at Capital One, which is where this whole journey got started. And when we think about great leadership, I think this model is really important because at Capital One, I had the ability to have a very squiggly career. And so squiggly. Yeah, I was able to kind of go around and try different things and get exposure to lots of different aspects of business and my career. And I had really great leaders who would kind of find the goodness of what lit me up or what I was really naturally good at and push me in those directions. So for me, my movement into L&D was very much based on incredible leaders who saw the gifts and the goodness and the joy that brought me and gave me spaces to do that and to try. For strengths specifically, it's a funny story for Casey and I. And I tell this almost every time I facilitate a strengths session. I start with this story because I think it's such a good example of a really tactical reason why strengths is so great. I had gone out on maternity leave at Capital One, and I loved my job. Like the role that I had at the time, I loved. And I went out on maternity leave, and I came back. And Casey had just joined the company and was maybe in her second rotation as a college rotation, like HR.
College hire, yep.
Yeah.
Management rotation program.
Management rotation program, that's right. And I came back to work and everybody was like, oh my gosh, I cannot wait for you to meet Casey. You're going to love Casey. Casey's so awesome. She's amazing. She's been doing so much great work. And my first thought coming back from maternity leave was like, what has she done?
Oh. Who has come and replaced me?
Like, has she blown up all my stuff? Like, I love my job. Like, I love my role. Who is this Casey girl? And I was like, very wary. But I was like, oh my gosh, she's amazing. You're just going to love her. Well, then enter in Carver Evans. We got to give her a shout out to Carver Evans.
We have to.
Shout out to Carver Evans.
Yeah, shout out. She joined the team as our leader, and she had been certified as a strengths coach. She had us do our strengths. And then we quickly realized that Casey and I have we'll say, not opposite, but complementary strengths. So where she is really great, they're at the lower end of my strengths profile. My top strengths are her bottom strengths. And I think if we had never had that conversation, taken the assessment and seen that, I think she would have become my arch nemesis at work. But instead, we were like the dynamic duo. We did some of the coolest projects I've ever done in my career. Mm-hmm. But it's because we had this appreciation and realization of what I bring versus what she brings and how we can combine that together for exponential power.
Yeah.
I love that. What I hear at the heart of that is that strengths and your passion for it grew out of like realizing that it takes away competition and drives collaboration, and that through that y'all were able to do some pretty amazing work together.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that your passion for this came out of just having had great leaders that kind of helped lead and guide and direct you on the path that aligned with your skills and your talents and your strengths.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Casey, how about, tell us your version of how you got into learning development, developing teams, and especially working with strengths.
Yeah, so I've been certified for 9 years as well with Amy, and Amy is correct. She did come back from leave, and that is kind of when our strengths journey started. But from the beginning of my career at Capital One, I always found myself in roles focused on associate experience. And the one question they ask you is, okay, get everyone to get along and like their job, go. And it's a very grace-based role. And I started thinking about it, and there's a lot of different personality assessments out there. And our manager, Carver Evans, encouraged me to go get certified with Amy in CliftonStrengths. I had no idea what it was. I flew to Nebraska, got off the plane, and I will say the first time that I was sold in this strengths journey was the big aha it gave me with myself. Mm-hmm. So I went to the certification, and I started learning about all the benefits of strengths and how it can change teams and make them more engaged and really get you to not only understand yourself, but understand others. And that's exactly what I was looking for in my career. So I came back with Amy, and we, quickly realized that we had opposite strengths, which we'll probably talk about a little bit more later in the discussion. But from then on, my strengths journey, I think, just skyrocketed. I had realizations to myself. I finally had words of what were the strengths that I brought to a team personally. I knew what my strengths were. I knew what I liked. I knew what jobs I ended up in. But after going and getting certified in this assessment and really understanding myself, I could come and bring that back to teams and teach other people too, to learn about themselves.
Yeah. I love it. I love that your role has always been in this like associate experience place, and you got to get people to love their job and love each other. And if you do any type of research on like associate engagement, especially Gallup, which is a well-respected research organization that strengths is actually underneath, you will find that associate engagement numbers are extremely depressing. So I think it's like most recently, like 30% of our U.S. workforce is what they would call engaged. So that means that 70% of our workforce is either like coming in and getting the job done without a lot of passion behind it, or completely disengaged. Exactly. Which is so sad considering we spend so much time at work. So sounds like you've always been in that difficult space of trying to get that number up, and that you personally experienced how strengths helped you figure out how to do that for yourself, and how you do that for others.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing. Y'all have been certified longer than me. So my journey with strengths, I had done a lot of different behavioral assessments in my 20 years of being in learning and development. And when I was at Capital One, I had an amazing boss, Louise Welch, who had come from Google, and she was heading up learning and development for Capital One. And we had a good behavioral assessment, but it was all about your style preference. And she recommended that we explore strengths as more of a tool to help empower people to do what they could do through their natural talents, which is different than your behavior style. So that's how I started getting into it, and went to a lot of different workshops and things. And I will never forget when I got certified, because it was January of 2020. And I was in Washington, D.C. at the Gallup headquarters. And I remember like the news was on and everybody had on masks, and we're like, what's going on?
Yes.
So that's when I got certified. But what really stuck for me, when I was already a coach and I'd been doing a lot of coaching, and what stuck for me was I, during that certification, like went out for a break, and there was this man standing there by like all the leftover breakfast, like munching on stuff. I'm like, what's going on? And this man's like, how's your training going? And I was like, oh, it's going well. Well, come to find out, he's Don Clifton, who is the son of the inventor of CliftonStrengths, who now oversees Gallup. And I didn't know, but he was like the main man of the entire organization. And we start talking, and I'm like, oh, it's great. I'm really enjoying it. And he was like, at the end of the day, what this tool is, CliftonStrengths, is it's a coaching tool.
Yes.
He was like, this is a tool that helps you and others feel empowered and clear on how to do whatever it is that you want to do. And that just really stuck with me. So I incorporate it so much into individual coaching and team coaching, all because I just find it's the easiest way to get people to get where they want to go.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. Who wants to give, like, I kind of touched on it, but who wants to give like the background of what CliftonStrengths is? Because I don't think we've really talked about that.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Yeah, I can talk about CliftonStrengths. So there's a lot of personality assessments. I think I said that earlier. But the one thing about CliftonStrengths is I do believe it's very specific to each person and it's action oriented. So I know you had said behavioral, but it's a personality assessment that there's 34 different options of what a person can be. And I think a lot of times when we do personality assessments, it's here's what you are and here's what you're not at all. And the good thing about CliftonStrengths is every person has all of these 34 talents and or strengths. It's just a matter of what is more natural for you and what should you be leaning into in your career. So we like to say flexing that muscle. And I always use the example, it's we all can write with both hands. You can write with your right hand, you can write with your left hand, but writing with your dominant hand is easier and you do it better and you do it quicker. So I love strengths because it shows you why would you not be using your top 5 strengths every day, because you don't have to put as much effort into that, just like writing with your dominant hand. So that's the simplest way for me to explain the personality assessment.
I think too, some of the other ways I love thinking about strengths are like when you take the assessment, it's timed, and so you have to answer the questions very quickly, and you're comparing 2 different statements, and it's so funny because people will take the assessment, they'll get their report, and they're like, who has been following me around? Like, how could I possibly answer these statements? And it's so accurate to who I am. But what it's testing for is, and I love when I got this explanation, you think about your neuropathways in your brain. We're going to go like nerdy brain science. So there's neuropathways that are very wide, like wide roads, like freeways that have no traffic and they're open wide freeways, and your brain likes those. Those are easy for your brain to do. You like to drive down the natural road. And then there are some that are like 2-lane roads where you can go, but you're going to avoid that if you're in a rush. And there's some roads that are dirt roads with a dead end, right? So the strengths assessment helps you kind of see in your talents which are your wide highways, which are your 2-lane roads, and which are your dirt roads with a dead end. And so you know where you want to spend the most of your time because you can see in your assessment what feels natural, what gives you flow, what gives you energy, what gives you joy. And so that I love when I got that explanation. I was like,
I love that analogy. It makes me think Don Clifton, who's the founder of CliftonStrengths, founded it based on the question of what if we focused on what's right with people rather than what's wrong with people. And so what's right with you is where you've got those freeways, right? And then strengths, it's not saying like that this is all I can do because of these unique strengths that I have. But what it's saying is use these unique talents and strengths to get wherever you want to go. So I love your road analogy because it's like, all right, there's your goal, which just goes back to why strengths is powerful for coaching. There's your goal. I want to, let's say, be the next, soccer, like pro soccer player. Great. That's your goal. Well, let's look at your top 5 strengths to say which of these strengths can you leverage to help you get there the fastest, rather than trying to use all the ones that are dead ends and bumpy roads and all those things.
And I think today we always, we focus on being well-rounded. And when I was in the certification process, they said you need your team to be well-grounded. So it's in what your strengths are. And I think that that's a little bit goes back to your road analogy. Strengths allows you to understand what are you really, really good at. You don't have to be good at everything. It's almost like a breath of fresh air. Just focus on what's natural for you.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like instead of being well-rounded people, right, we want to be pointy people, because then we can meet other pointy people and be well-rounded partnerships, right? So that's the other thing about strengths. There's so many good analogies, but there's the individual part of it that I know myself and I can develop against my strengths. There's the partnership piece, there's the teaming piece, but then there's also the leadership piece as well. So there's just a lot of different components and aspects of how we can integrate this tool, how we can leverage this tool for the best the best outcome for yourself, for your team, and as a leader.
So I'd love to hear just maybe an example or a story of a personal way that you've leveraged your strengths, or something you've done with a team that's just really seemed to like show that strengths is a powerful tool.
Do you want to?
No, you can go.
So I would say a personal level with strengths, going back to, I think you said it's very important to know your own strengths as a leader before you bring them to your team. So that's the self-awareness part. And when I went to this session to get certified, it almost made sense, all the feedback I had gotten about myself, looking at my top strengths. I have communication in my top strength, so I'm a sharer. I like to share. I like to talk. I often process out loud, which a lot of people that I worked with process internally. So sometimes I had a team where I would be, talking in a meeting or brainstorming, and I would be sharing some ideas. And my team had taken it as, okay, we need to take that and go and run with it. That's our next project, and that's what we should be prioritizing. So I think after I went to this certification, I had this big aha moment, which is my favorite thing doing team sessions, when you see that light bulb go off in someone's brain. It is the best. I had that for myself first. And I said, yes, I considered myself good at communicating, but was I doing it in the right way? Was I understanding my team and what worked for them, not just what worked for me? So I think with strengths, that was my personal aha moment of understanding myself and how other people were perceiving my strengths. So I took that back to my team. I'm actually going to use my own organization and Amy, you were on my team at that time, as an example. People were coming in and out from maternity leave. There were new hires. There were folks in different locations. And I think there was some friction of who owns what and who's good at what and who's going to pick up the work. We were all on a chief of staff team, which, if you're familiar with that, there's a lot of different moving parts. There's many different projects and fire drills and just a lot of things going on. So we took time to pause. We all took the strengths assessment. Even our leader took it, which was really, really important for him. And we came together and we noticed that we had a really, really diverse team. And it took us a time to process it of who's naturally good at what, who is completely de-energized by a current project or a role that they're in, and we didn't even know that. So we took time to discuss our strengths, to understand ourselves, to understand the team, where our blind spots are, how others might perceive us, and we created an entire new communication interaction model. We also created more space for folks to collaborate. And, it was that breath of fresh air where I didn't have to be the ideator like Amy all the time. Amy didn't have to make the project plans. And we became more efficient, more engaged. Our team was more, I would say, we created psychological safety. Open to saying, I need help, or, hey, I really am interested in that work. I want to work on it. I love this part,
And we didn't go no, you can't have it.
Yeah.
No, this is mine. It was like, well, yeah, we can collaborate together and you'll bring something unique that I can't bring. And so I'm welcoming you into my work, as opposed to don't take my work. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think those are my two, just going back to it, like that is my big aha, and then that's the team. And since then, I've worked with several teams, whether they're newer and forming, whether they, maybe had an org shift, or maybe they are working on a new project and they just were having some friction within the team, or maybe they just wanted to get to know each other. And strengths has been something that has created a lot of benefits with our teams. And again, it's a positive assessment, which is my favorite thing you said earlier, Casey, about it.
Yeah. So it helped you kind of learn how you were communicating and the impacts of that. And then it helped the team that you were on just really like open themselves up to understanding where everybody was coming from, and then figure out how to best leverage that to do big things.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think to this day, we still talk about how that was one of the best teams that we've ever, and anybody that you come across that was in that team at that time will say, gosh, remember that team? That was the best team. But it's because we had that level of safety. We had that level of understanding. I remember one specific day, you guys were preparing for a strengths session, and you were like just a flurry, and you were so stressed out. And I was like, well, what if? And they both went, you always just bring this peaceful calm and this reassurance. And that's my connectedness. Like, I just always believe everything's going to work the way it's supposed to. It's all going to be okay. And that was another great part. Another thing that I love about strengths is that we were able to call that out in each other. So instead of just saying, thanks for your help, which feels nice and it feels great to be appreciated, it's like, thank you for bringing this specific strength to the table. That is appreciation on a whole another level. So there's that. So I think personally for me, the aha was a little bit what Casey said too. So strategic is my number one strength. And I would have assumed that strategic was somewhere in the top 10. I would have never imagined it was number one. And that really helped me realize that the way that my brain works is something that I never gave myself credit for or really like owned. And I also just assumed everybody else's brain worked that way too. So once I did my strengths and I realized, no, you have strategic number one and people aren't following you because you're taking these trails. You need to slow down and bring them along, which was directly from my strengths report. That was such an aha for me to recognize that the disconnects that have been happening or the feedback that I've been getting are because I have these strengths. I'm just not, to Casey's point, utilizing them in the right way, or I'm not accounting for them, or I'm not accounting for the fact that other people don't have my strengths. And so I need to, manage my style and consider theirs. One of my other favorite uses is once we actually had critical mass in our organization, before I went into a meeting, I would typically go into the portal and pull down somebody's strengths. So if they were highly analytical, I knew I was going to come in with the facts. If they were highly relational, I was going to take some time. How was your weekend? How are your kids doing? What's going on? If they were highly I made sure that we did not leave that meeting without action points and clear ownership. So I could actually adjust my style to theirs, and then people get what they need. So that's a big one. And then even personally, I think being a mom and raising kids, right? So being a strengths coach is such a great thing to have as a mom, because you can kind of see it in your kids even before they've taken the assessment. So there's even this great example of, my oldest son is going into 6th grade, and we get to pick what classes he goes into, which I wasn't ready for. And his teacher was like, yeah, we'll put him in honors math. And I was like, well, what about honors social studies? She was like, well, it's up to you. And I was like, he's had A's in honors social studies his whole career. Like, why would we not put him into honors social studies? And it's that mentality that thanks to strengths that I have, that I think in America, or especially specifically in our culture, we are always looking to bring up the bottom, not to focus on what's at the top. So when somebody comes home with a report card and they have all A's and a C, you're signing them up for a tutor for that thing that they have a C in, but you're not going, wait a minute, they've had an A in this thing since they were in 1st grade. Let's spend time. That's a place where they have natural flow and energy. So it's a huge mindset shift that comes across in my parenting, the way I build relationships, the way I build teams. When people onboard and I get their strengths assessment, I give them mine. It changes how you see people, I think. And you don't expect people to be who they are not, and you can see them for who they are. It's a huge, huge, huge mindset shift on teams.
One thing I'll add that we did do from a leader perspective, once we started rolling out CliftonStrengths within Capital One and other organizations, we we got each leader to take their strengths, and they would put their strengths card up at a big team or organizational meeting. And, some leaders were hesitant. I will say, some leaders, they would say, strategic is in my bottom. I don't want to share that I don't have strategic in my top. And we would always say, but you do strategic work through other ways. Think about your top 5 strengths. Think about how you are strategic if you have achiever first. You must be able to really prioritize the work of the team really well if achiever is your number 1. And I think we just were getting leaders to share what they are naturally good at and how they're going to show up is the first start to ensuring that your organization creates this psychological safety, this, we call it strengths talk. So you're able to talk about, hey, it's my achiever coming out. I really need the objective and the goal. Or, hey, I need time to process. Can I get that answer to you tomorrow?
Or can you give me a pre-read before the meeting? So
exactly.
I can think about it, so I come in prepared.
Yes, and just simply being able to understand the diversity within your team and how people thrive and how people may just be surviving is so important. And I think it really, I'll do my acronym. People laugh, but I have folks say, what are the benefits of strengths? There's so many personality assessments out there, and how is strengths different? And I use the acronym STRONG. So it builds self-awareness within your team and yourself. It builds trust within your team. It's that psychological safety I keep going back to. It brings responsibility. So if you say you're going to do something and you feel like that's your top strength, you put your name on it and you stand up to your team to be the ideator or the activator. It brings ownership. So when you put your name next to something that you're going to do and bring to the team as well. And then natural collaboration. I do think there's a difference between collaboration and natural collaboration. And I think, you can be forced to go to a networking thing, and that's collaboration. But natural collaboration with strengths is you want to do it. You want to collaborate with that person on your team because it's what you're drawn to, what type of project. And then growth. It creates growth. Yeah. You become more engaged, more efficient, more satisfied with your job. And yeah, so there's so many benefits. And
wow, I love a good acronym. I love a good analogy. We got the analogy and we got the acronyms. Yeah, we got the roads, the freeways, the dead ends, the bumpy roads. We got strong. That was great. I absolutely love that. Just a little bit more about strengths, because you're hearing us talk about the domains and the different talents, but there's 4 key domains, and this shows up in most all of your different assessments that you can take, but strengths goes a little bit deeper. So you've got execution, people that prefer or are naturally really good at executing, which is getting stuff done. You've got relationship building, which is people that are really good at connecting with other humans. We've got influence, which is people that really have that ability to bring others along. And then we've got strategic thinking, which is really being able to think through all the different ways that you might go about accomplishing something. So you've got these 4 domains, and then under each domain are these 34 unique talents. And when you do the CliftonStrengths assessment, you can do an assessment where you just find out your top 5 talents, which I actually prefer that one because it makes people not even look at their lower talent scores. And then there's also the whole 34 report where you can get the full picture of what are your top 5, what are your top 10, all the way down to your bottom 34. But I think something I heard and what each of y'all shared is your strengths can be your greatest asset when you know it, and you know them. You can align them to do pretty much anything, and you can partner with other people to accomplish big things. But they can also be your biggest detriment, right? If you over-index on them. So an example for me, one of my top 5 strengths is maximizer. And so what that is it's always looking to make things even better. And that serves me well in my role as a coach, as I'm always working with individuals and teams and organizations of how can we support you in even being better. But it drives my husband absolutely crazy. So Like, I'm never satisfied with like things that we do. Like, we'll go on a nice trip, and then before we're leaving, I'm like, all right, where are we going next?
Yeah.
Right? Or we'll do something at the house, and I'm like, oh, it's nice, but it'd be better if we did this. So knowing your strengths helps you understand where sometimes you might over-index. But also it helps you knowing how you can leverage them to get wherever you want to go. So I think that's an important piece of it as well.
Yeah, I love that. And I think there's a big unlock or aha that happened for me is, it's funny because I actually am the opposite of you in that I love the full 34. I struggle when I only get the top 5 when I'm coaching somebody, because if you can't own what's at the bottom, it's really hard to invite other people in to partner with you. If you can't say like, well, I know that I'm not strong in executing, so I need to invite those people in with me. But what's really interesting is people oftentimes when they get their full 34, they'll look at their top 5 and then they immediately go down and look at their bottom. And that's again, that's just human nature where we focus on weakness. But the irony is, and this was such an aha, your weaknesses actually are not typically the things that are getting in the way of your success. If you can look at your bottom 5 and pinpoint exactly how any of those things are actually detrimental to your success, then yes, you need to find ways to mitigate that. But typically, that's not the problem. The things that are getting in the way of your success are the blind spots of your strengths.
Over-indexing.
Yeah, because your strengths, your top 5 or top 10, that's how you show up 90% of the time. So if you hardly ever show up as your bottom 10, why would you be getting feedback on those things? Why would those things be getting in your way? Like, they're just not who you are. It's when you are overusing or even underusing your strengths, or when you're, spending too much time in the blind spots of your strengths, that actually becomes more of a detriment to your success than your non-talents or weaknesses are. And you have to be careful with that, because then people will start to treat their blind spots or their strengths like weakness. And so it's that, you got to get out of the mentality of like, it's better to bring up your strengths than it is to focus. We always say like, your weaknesses are like a puddle. There's no depth there. But your strengths are a bottomless pool. Like, it's the ocean. Like, there's no end to the development.
I love
I
a
do.
good analogy.
It's my
So your
connectedness.
weaknesses are like a puddle.
Yep.
There's no depth there.
no depth there.
But your strengths are like a deep, deep pool.
Ocean. Yeah. Like, why keep digging at a puddle? Like, there's nothing, you're not going to gain much from that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So you can take the Clifton Strengths Assessment. There is a book, and I think it comes with a free assessment when you buy the book, which is great. You can go online, you can purchase it. For people that maybe don't want to buy the book, don't want to purchase the assessment, what would be your advice to somebody just to like start touching more awareness of what some of their unique talents and strengths might be?
Good one.
I would say start to notice things about yourself and where you gravitate to and how you respond to things. And I think one of my managers, when I started working, said, always keep a sticky note on your computer that says what you like and what you don't like, what drains your energy and what fills your cup, or fills your cup and drains your cup. And I will be 99.9% sure that if you take the Clifton Strengths Assessment and then you take those sticky notes and you look at what you're drained by, what you're energized by, it will align. And, when you do take the assessment, I'm not sure we mentioned it, but there's a report that it gives you, and it will give you action items you should do for yourself on your team, blind spots that are very specific to you and how you manage those. It will give you things that you should fully dive into in your career, in your personal life, based on your strengths. So I love the report, but if you have not taken the assessment, just start looking at what's natural for you.
And noticing what lights you up and what just absolutely drains you. I think that's smart, and like keeping a little inventory of it.
You could even like look back through your calendar, right? Like, what meetings have I gone to in the last 90 days? Or what activities or actions or projects have I taken on that, what percentage of my work am I spending in high energy, high flow, where I feel like I am working in my natural talents? And what percentage of my time am I spending in things that drain me and drain the life out of me, and I'm driving home and I'm just so exhausted from the day? And start to figure out why do those things bring you energy that do, and why do those things drain you? And I would also say, if you find that you're way overbalanced in the things that drain you, like have a conversation with your leader. But the other thing I think that's important too is if you've made it through middle school, everybody has armored up a little bit, right? So a lot of times we have a hard time finding and addressing and owning what makes us great. And that is one of the best things about this tool is that you do get to put language around and you do have the ownership of what your strengths are. And it is, you are grounded in that confidence of like, this is what I'm good at. It's like a little bit of a, a little bit of a flex.
This is who I am.
But if that does not come natural to you, and if you haven't taken the report and kind of been able to swim in that, ask the people around you that love you, that you trust, whose opinion you value, ask them, what am I uniquely great at? And start to get that feedback and like be in a place where you can receive it. Because I know sometimes it's hard to get, gratitude and appreciation and recognition from others, but start asking people for that, because sometimes I think it is really hard for us to see where we're uniquely gifted.
Yeah. So look inward and pay attention to what gives you energy, what drains you, keep track of it so you can start to get a pulse on what is a freeway for you and what is a bumpy road for you. And then also ask for feedback. We've talked a lot about getting feedback in these podcast sessions. So ask those that you spend the most time with what they notice. When do they see you in flow? When do they see you on a bumpy road? But if you'd like the opportunity to really dive in and learn about your own strengths, we will be sure to put my website link in the comments section so that you can set up a time to learn more about what that looks like. We'd love to take you through that journey. And I think at the end of the day, what we're hearing is a tool like CliftonStrengths helps you gain more self-awareness, which then allows you to be more authentically yourself, which then allows you to be more open to learning about other people and what their strengths might be. And what a world it would be if we all did that.
I mean, it's life-changing.
It's
really
truly life-changing.
It is, and I wish I had had the assessment when I was in college. I definitely, there's a kids version, so I will be getting my kids to take the assessment when they're old enough, just because, I mean, how awesome would it be for your kids to have known you were a maximizer, Casey? That you always are going to be, what can we do better? What can we do better? And you can't help it. You strive for excellence, which is awesome. It's a strength in itself.
Could you imagine being in middle school and knowing your strengths and being like, this is who I am?
Exactly.
Wow.
Yes.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
It is.
Yeah, I know a lot of universities are implementing it as part of their
Yes.
orientation for, and I think about that, like as I was navigating my career, if I knew my strengths, gosh, that would have been amazing.
Yeah.
But the other thing, we talked about this from the beginning, and I think one of the unique gifts when we think about the business case for strengths, so like why should anybody invest in this for the business? And we started with the engagement piece, right? And how engagement is so low. So you could spend a lot of money on fun offsites and go do all these different
Happy
things,
hours.
happy hours and swag and all of these things, right? But if I spend 8 hours away from my family doing something that is a bumpy road and drains the life out of me, I don't care how many happy hours I go to or how much fun swag I get, I'm not going to be engaged. And I think of engagement like, another great analogy, I can't help myself, but
I love it.
a highly engaged person is somebody, it's the analogy of somebody who, like, if there's trash on the ground, they'll pick it up. A unengaged person is somebody who, like, sees trash on the ground and they just leave it there. They're like, that's not my problem. It's trash. And then a disengaged person is the one who's like throwing the trash on the ground, right? So to move people to a place where they're the ones that are so invested in your business that they would actually pick up a piece of trash from the ground, that comes from, I know who I am, I know my strengths, I know the strengths of the people around me, I get to work in my strengths every day, I get the flex of feeling like I'm in flow. And again, it's not every part of your job is going to feel like it fills your strengths cup. Like, I love being a mom, I don't love 100% of,
I'd say that's like the 80-20 rule. Like, you want 80% of your role to feel like flow and feel really good, but there's always going to be a 20% that doesn't.
Right. Yeah. There's always, sometimes you're up all night with a sick kid. Yeah, that's just how it goes, right? So, but if we can, if you bring strengths into your organization and folks know their strengths and they're working in their strengths and you can direct the work. Again, this is not a hiring tool. I think it's really important that we say it's not a hiring tool, it's a developmental tool. But if we can start to point people towards projects and roles and teams where they are working more in flow, that engagement will come. It just will come. And
And more trash will get picked
more
up.
trash will get picked up.
And what a world it will be.
Yeah, the last thing I will say, CliftonStrengths, the chance of you having the same top 5 strengths in the same order is 1 in 34 million.
Yeah.
So it really highlights the diversity within teams, and I really love that.
Yeah.
Well, I can't thank you all enough for being here today and sharing about your experience and your passion for developing deeper self-awareness in yourself and in others through this tool of CliftonStrengths. And we do always end the session with giving you the opportunity to nominate 1 or 2 folks who really inspire you here in the Richmond community that could be potential future guests. So turn it over to you, Amy, first to share who comes to mind for you.
Yeah, I got a couple. And it's funny because I haven't given them a heads up at all. So hopefully that's okay.
Oh, yeah, that's okay.
But going back to Capital One, I think when I think of great leaders, I worked with a lot of great leaders at Capital One, but one that I really, that comes to mind as a standout leader is Morris Taylor, who's now the CIO of Merkel. So he's one that I think would be an incredible, and outside of my core industry. Another one is a person that I have met through Disrupt HR, and she is the CEO of a nonprofit here in Richmond. So Angela Patton is the CEO of Girls for a Change, and look up that organization. They are doing incredible work, but she is an incredible leader in that space. So she's another one that I think would be an awesome guest for you.
Great. Thank you so much. And why don't you real quick say what Disrupt HR is? 'Cause I think it's good for people to know.
Yeah, Disrupt HR is awesome. So this is once a year, folks from all over the HR community get together, and it's a little bit, I don't want to call it like TED Talk style because it's not, but you stand up and you give a presentation on a specific topic. And usually, so for example, I think a couple years ago, it was bring more joy into work. And so you would have 10 different speakers who would talk about any kind of aspect. It could be, it could be onboarding. It could be the future of work. It could be any part of HR. And the whole point is to get people to disrupt or to think differently, you should leave that session, and I always have going, what? And just start to think out of the box, and really it should kind of break your brain a little bit and make you think differently about how to approach HR.
Yeah.
So,
and I would think people tuning into this podcast would also find a ton of value in that.
Yeah.
Similar interest. All right, Casey, how about you? Who are your nominees?
I have an executive director at Sports Backers, Will Dixon, and he just took the role from someone that was leading it for over 30 years. So exciting to see what he's going to do, what changes he's going to make, where he's going to dive in even deeper. But they put on things like the Richmond Marathon, the 10K.
Signed up for the 8K in November.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so I think he would be really awesome. He's an awesome leader in Richmond. And then I got to do Markel as well. I have a powerful woman leader. She's head of audit at Markel, Jessica Richardson. And I've just always been inspired by the leadership that she brings to her teams, and not only inside work, but just outside. She's wonderful.
All right. Well, thank you both for the nominations. We'll be sure to reach out to them and invite them to be future guests. And thank you, listeners, for tuning in. We'll see you soon. Hey, listener, if you enjoyed today's session, take a moment and subscribe, or comment below. Especially leave a comment of a leader that inspires you here in Richmond that might be a great future guest. Also, if you're finding this session compelling and eager to learn more about yourself and your own leadership, don't hesitate to click into my website listed in the description and schedule a complimentary call. I'd love to learn more about you. Thank you.